two things, and that is making mistakes and I'll put that in quotations, meaning any mistake is mistake in knowledge, right? And experimenting. We're encouraging you to do that. But what I notice is if I make a mistake, a lot of you pick on me. So that means that you're not very humble or willing to make mistakes yourself. Right? And if you don't make mistakes, you're not going to find learning easy. You're going to find learning difficult. Making mistakes and being willing to make mistakes is actually a good thing. Of course, in our childhood, we have a lot of terror about making mistakes because of the emotions and even the violence that was projected at us when we made a mistake. And we have to release some of that pain before we'll be comfortable making mistakes. Yeah. Chris, you'd like to ask?
About a year ago, I made a mistake with respect to a neighbour, a mistake in love.
Yeah.
But I only realised that in hindsight.
Yep.
Because I went to face him about something.
Yeah.
I felt some fear as a result for about half an hour, so it allowed me to release some fear. Yeah. And then I realised in hindsight that I'd made a mistake in love.
Yeah.
So I'm now confused because having made a mistake in love, I have to repent for that, but I got the opportunity to release some fear.
That's why I've put mistakes in quotes. The mistake you don't want to make is a mistake in love. But you are going to make mistakes in love because this is in place. You've got to expect that that's going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You're going to make mistakes, even mistakes in love, real mistakes. You're going to make mistakes because your facade is going to need to first be deconstructed. Now, I put to you, though, that if you had accepted your facade, you probably wouldn't have made that mistake. And this is why accepting the facade is so important. Okay. See, when you accept your facade, you see all of your motivations, your real motivations for doing things. So you would have analysed your real motivation for seeing your neighbour, and you would have found it to be driven by an addiction of some kind.
Yes, it was.
Or a fear of some kind. Yeah. And as a result, you wouldn't have taken action because it would have been unloving to do so, to feed a fear or addiction. So what I'm suggesting to you is many of our mistakes come from the fact that we're in denial of our facade rather than aware of it.
Okay. That's why it's so important to address and accept the facade first. Otherwise, you'll just continue making mistakes in love without realising.
Remember, it's your facade that does all the sinning. Right? Okay. So while you continue to act in your facade, driven by the pain the facade is, right, or the avoidance of it, but by being driven by the avoidance of it, it's going to sin. It has a desire to sin.
Right. Okay.
Right? So it's going to cause you to make mistakes in love. And if you accept your facade, you'll make less mistakes in love. Right? Now, many of you sort of think, well, if I accept my facade, I'm going to feel so terrible and ashamed, I'll feel really bad. Well, that's a part of accepting a facade. But you wouldn't judge that, would you? Because we've talked about judgment of that. We need to have compassion for that, how it came about. But once we've accepted our facade, you can see that making mistakes is going to be a lot more difficult because we'll see when we're driven by our addictions and we'll see when we're driven by terror. And we'll see that as an unloving decision to respond to that as an action, and then we'll refuse to act in harmony with that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is what we need to be careful doing. See, most of us are analysing things through denial or before we've accepted the facade, and then we're saying, oh, but I'm confused here. But the reality is we're only confused because we've yet to accept our facade. Once we accept the facade, we now have the ability to see what my unloving motivations actually are. You follow?
Yes. Yeah. So in other words, Although I had an opportunity to face my fear of talking to my neighbour, I would not have gone to see him because I would have been enacting an addiction.
Correct.
So I would have had to have dealt with my fear some other way.
Correct.
Okay.
And dealt with your addiction.
Yes.
As well.
Okay.
Yep.
Fine.
Yep.
Thanks.
And if you saw your addiction, you wouldn't have acted upon it. If you saw it as an addiction and therefore as a sin, you would not have acted upon it. Yeah. So good question. Go to Phoebe.